Hey, this is Subspace Transmissions. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Cam.
We had a bit of a summer hiatus, but I think, Cam, you and I, we finally wiped off all that Orion cosplayer makeup from our faces after the Star Trek Las Vegas 2018 convention. Finally scrubbed it all off of us. Took us like 2 weeks, but we're ready to do more videos here.
I use steel wool.
That's pretty tough.
You're telling me.
Yeah, but I appreciate that your skin's healed now, and we're thinking a lot about like what we want to see from Discovery Season 2. Specifically, I think the relationships that we want to see develop here, because I think that was one of the big strengths of the new Star Trek series. But we also have a lot of new dynamics popping out in time for the next season. Who do you want to see, I guess, like further explored or maybe paired up, like maybe new characters possibly?
Right. Well, one that really intrigues me is that one of the early Discovery novels paired off Number 1 and Saru for this sort of quasi-romance. And look, I don't expect the series to follow the book at all, but I had never thought of that idea. And when I read it in the book, I was like, that would be interesting. We've never seen Saru have really like a quote-unquote normal relationship with another character.
Sure.
Like the Burnham relationship with Saru is very combative and then kind of untrusting, and it is very much like squabbling siblings. Whereas I would like to see Saru have, I guess, what you could call like a sweeter relationship with another character in some way. I think that would be really interesting to see.
What do you think is the closest he has to that right now in the series?
I mean, I would say like him and Giorgio initially, but right now, is there anyone? Maybe him and Tilly?
Yeah, it's funny because you and I thought a lot about how he could potentially be the next captain of Discovery.
Sure.
So maybe it's great that he doesn't have like a super sweet relationship, where he's more of a commanding, more of an aloof sort of character.
Well, it's kind of the Picard problem, where like Picard is the leader, so, not necessarily Geordi's going to be like, let's go hang out. And Saru's kind of in the same boat, where he is kind of at the top of the totem pole, at least until Pike gets to the ship. And so you're not going to have him hanging out with Tilly, being goofy or whatever. And so I would like to see, if they pay that off in any way or decide to mine that territory. I think Number 1 could be really interesting because you have Rebecca Romijn, who's a really good actress.
Yeah.
And Doug Jones is a fantastic actor. So I think those two actors could have chemistry.
And I bet they could both, commiserate over the extensive body makeup that they've had to wear as actors. So,
has he ever worn blue, though?
Oh, I'm sure in his long filmography, it's probably there somewhere.
Question for the next convention.
Yeah, but for me, I think, you look at the main character, Michael Burnham, who's she likely going to be paired off or bouncing off quite a bit next season? It's got to be Christopher Pike, who we're familiar with from the original series and the Kelvinverse movies. But we've had about, I'd say, 13 more hours with Burnham than we have had with Pike. And I think he's, to a certain degree, a bit of a blank slate because we're also, meeting a Pike that is, I guess, 5 years younger than the one that we saw in the cage.
Which doesn't really work with Ensign Mount's age, but
Jeffrey
Hunter's age. But
people look different in the 60s.
Sure. But, just point blank question to you. If I bring up Captain Pike, and I'm not talking about the Kelvinverse, that's an alternate timeline, describe some of his character traits.
He likes horses.
So is Captain Kirk.
Very unconcerned, or he's very uncertain about his place as a commanding officer going forward. At least that's the Cage version. With regards to the Kelvinverse, I mean, he actually seems like a very assertive sort of character, someone who's really into mentorship. And I wonder if there's a lot of potential for Pike and Burnham as kind of the mentor-mentee relationship. Sure. But I also wonder, how combative is Burnham going to be, especially when, look, it's not a spoiler at this point. If you've seen the trailers or heard anything about Season 2, we kind of know that Burnham's going to be seeking out, with the help of Pike, her foster brother here.
Right.
And I wonder how that Spock dynamic is going to play between the two of them, because they have that in common. And I think that's going to be a very fascinating thing. I also wonder if Burnham's going to be throwing kind of the Vulcan shade in his direction. And I think that could be fun to watch.
Is that the episode title?
The Vulcan shade? Yeah, follow up to the Vulcan hello.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I am actually really interested as well in seeing Pike, Ensign Mount, play off the new play off the new Spock. Because, I mean, we never really saw those characters do a lot together in the Cage. Spock was there, but it's not like he was in the position he was like on the original series. And so I am very curious to see, what is Pike's relationship with Spock like? What made Kirk so special versus Captain Pike?
Yeah, and suspect, though, we're not going to have a lot of time to explore that dynamic, at least.
I want 13 episodes exploring it.
Okay. I'll just throw this at you, though. I mean, what do you really want to see from Stamets with, like, kind of character dynamics amongst the crew at this point? Because he was a character that kind of seemed lost in the last half of the season, where he wasn't really quite the same Stamets that we knew initially, and then he lost his partner, and he was kind of aloof towards that huge loss. I mean, who would be a good character to maybe anchor him to a certain degree that we already know?
Well, I would like to see more of him and Burnham developed, but I think him and Tilly are the pair that makes sense.
Okay.
Because you have the two of them geeking out over science, they have that in common, and they are just a really interesting study in contrasts, which is something I think Discovery would love to mine. And so I think that makes sense just in terms of pleasing an audience. But I do hope Discovery takes a page from Star Trek Beyond, which is a weird thing to say, but Star Trek Beyond was actually really clever in pairing off characters you wouldn't normally see together, like Uhura and Sulu. Like, who would have ever thought of pairing those two off in an episode?
Chekhov and Kirk. Like, that was a great one in Beyond as well.
And so I'm hoping Discovery has some surprises there of just like, we're doing like a Stamets Pike episode. And you're like, huh, wouldn't have thought of that.
You could call that Spike once again, Cam.
Oh.